You've been standing on the edge of breakthrough, wondering when your turn will come. You've been fighting silent battles, carrying weights no one sees, praying prayers that seem to echo back in silence. But I want to tell you something today, with all the certainty I can muster. Your victory is coming. It's not just a hopeful statement. It's a truth rooted in the unshakable character of God. You may not feel it right now. You may not see it in your surroundings, but that doesn't change the reality. God is working behind the scenes, and He's about to make it happen. There are seasons in life when everything feels like it's falling apart, like the walls are closing in and you have no way out. It is in those moments when you are stretched, tested, and pushed to your limits that God is often doing His deepest work. You are not being punished, you are being prepared. You are not being delayed, you are being developed. Every struggle, every tear, every unanswered question has a place in the masterpiece God is painting in your life. You may only see brushstrokes of chaos right now, but one day you will step back and see the beauty, the purpose, the power in it all. Victory doesn't always come wrapped in thunder or applause. Sometimes it sneaks in quietly through a new door opening, a surprising opportunity, a changed heart, a shifted mindset, but it always comes to those who do not give up. The enemy wants you to believe this is where your story ends, but God says otherwise. The God who split seas, crumbled walls, raised the dead, and healed the broken has not forgotten you. He sees every sleepless night, every whispered prayer, every moment you chose faith over fear. You've come too far to stop now. Some victories are instant, but many are incremental. God builds us layer by layer, season by season, because He's not just concerned about delivering the outcome, He's shaping the overcomer. He's more interested in who you are becoming than what you are achieving. You want the mountaintop, but God is strengthening your legs in the valley. You're looking for the crown, but He's building your character to carry it well. You think you're being overlooked, but He's hiding you for a purpose. There's a difference between being buried and being planted. What feels like darkness is just the soil for your growth. Stay rooted. Stay grounded. Your victory is germinating even when you can't see it. Faith isn't about ignoring the facts. It's about focusing on the truth beyond the facts. You may feel weak, but the truth is God is your strength. You may feel alone, but the truth is He promised never to leave you. You may feel behind, but God's timing is perfect. You're not late. You're right on schedule for the miracle that's being orchestrated on your behalf. When you place your life in God's hands, delays become divine appointments, detours become directions, and disappointments become setups for something greater. People may count you out, but God has counted every hair on your head. You might not be the most qualified, the most connected, or the most prepared in the world's eyes, but you are chosen. When God says yes, no opinion, no obstacle, no devil in hell can say no. He specializes in using the overlooked, the underestimated, the unqualified to do extraordinary things. Moses stuttered. David was the youngest. Esther was an orphan. Joseph was a prisoner. And yet every one of them saw God turn their setbacks into setups, their tests into testimonies, and their pain into purpose. This is not the time to let go. This is the time to hold on tighter. Your victory is closer than you think. Some of you are just one act of faith away, one prayer away, one decision away from the breakthrough you've been waiting for. Don't let temporary discomfort make you walk away from eternal destiny. God hasn't brought you this far to abandon you. The same God who opened doors before will do it again. The same God who made a way before will make it again. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And maybe your victory won't look like what you expected. Maybe it won't come packaged the way you envisioned it, but trust that it will be exactly what you need. God knows what you don't. He sees what's ahead. He knows who and what needs to align and when. Sometimes He withholds what you want now to give you something far greater later. Sometimes he delays things not because you're not ready to receive, but because what you're meant to receive isn't ready yet. Trust the process. Trust the timing. Trust the God who holds it all. You may be asking, but when, Lord? How much longer? And that's a valid question. Even Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane asked if the cup could pass from him. You're not wrong to feel weary. You're human. But after the question, let your spirit echo, yet not my will, but yours be done. That surrender, when you can still worship in the waiting, still praise in the pain, still trust in the tension, that's the space where miracles are born. Start speaking to your situation like it's already done. Speak healing over your body. Speak provision over your finances. Speak restoration over your relationships. Speak clarity over your confusion. Life and death are in the power of the tongue. What you speak consistently, you will begin to believe. And what you believe, you will begin to act on. Faith isn't just something you hold in your heart. It's something you release with your words and actions. Begin to walk like it's already yours. Praise like it's already done. Live like you've already won. The enemy trembles not when you complain, but when you declare. When you lift your eyes and say, I don't see it yet, but I know it's coming. I don't feel it yet, but I know God is moving. That kind of faith activates heaven. That kind of belief moves mountains. God responds to faith. Even if your faith is small, like a mustard seed, it is enough to shift atmospheres. Don't underestimate what God can do with your little. 5 loaves fed thousands. A sling and stone brought down a giant. Your little becomes much in the hands of a limitless God. And maybe you've fallen. Maybe you've messed up. Maybe you think your chance is gone. Let me tell you, God's grace is bigger than your mistakes. His mercy renews every morning. You can rise again. You can start over. You can walk into the victory He planned for you before you were even born. Nothing you've done can cancel the call on your life. No failure is final when God's hand is on you. You're not disqualified. You're just in training. The fire you've walked through is refining you, not destroying you. You're not finished, you're being forged. So stand firm. Get back up. Fix your eyes on what is unseen. Refuse to settle for less than what God has promised. He didn't place those dreams in your heart to tease you. He put them there to fulfill them. You were created with purpose, on purpose, for a purpose. You are not random. You are not forgotten. You are not invisible. Heaven knows your name. Your story is still being written. And the next chapter is filled with unexpected favor, open doors, divine connections, healing, and joy unspeakable. Your job is to keep going, to trust when it's hard, to obey even when it doesn't make sense, to stay faithful when nothing seems to be changing, because in the blink of an eye, things can turn around. One encounter can shift your entire future. One moment of favor can redeem years of waiting. God doesn't need a lifetime to bless you. He just needs a moment. And when that moment comes, it will be clear. Only God could have done this. So if you're tired, rest, but don't quit. If you're confused, pray, but don't panic. If you're hurting, grieve, but don't give up hope. The night will not last forever. The storm will pass. The mountain will move. Your victory is coming, and when it arrives, you won't have to force it, fake it, or fear it. You'll know this is the hand of God. Let the world watch. Let the doubters talk. Let time pass. But stay in position. Stay in faith. Stay in peace, because God is about to make it happen. Not by your might, not by your power, but by His Spirit. It won't make sense to others. It may not even make sense to you, but it will be undeniable that this was God's doing. And when it comes, when the doors open, the chains fall, the healing flows, the prayers are answered, don't forget to give Him glory. Don't forget where your help came from. Let your life be a testament to His faithfulness. Let your story inspire others who are still in their waiting season, because what God is doing in you isn't just for you. It's for everyone who will witness it and say, if God did it for them, He can do it for me. Hold your head high. Walk in expectation. Speak with authority. Live with joy. You are not just waiting, you are preparing. You are not just surviving, you are strengthening. You are not just dreaming, you are about to receive. Victory often comes after preparation and testing. It's a truth that many overlook in the moments of hardship, but it is one of the most consistent patterns seen in the lives of those God uses powerfully. When you are going through difficult seasons, when life feels uncertain, heavy, and relentless, it can be easy to assume something is wrong, that perhaps God has forgotten you or is punishing you, but that couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, those very seasons are often the greatest evidence that God is preparing something more significant than you can imagine. God does not waste pain. He does not allow storms without purpose. Just like a skilled craftsman refines gold in fire, God allows testing seasons to shape you, purify you, and grow you into someone who can carry the weight of the blessing He is about to release. He is not just concerned with giving you victory, He is focused on who you are becoming in the process. Character is forged in pressure. Endurance is built in the waiting. Wisdom is cultivated in the confusion. Faith is strengthened when there is no evidence, only trust. All of these qualities are critical, not just for receiving victory, but for sustaining it. Think of the greatest victories in Scripture. David didn't become king the moment he was anointed. He had to face giants, run from Saul, live in caves, and wrestle with rejection. Those years in the wilderness were not wasted. They were necessary. David was being tested and shaped into a man who could lead a nation with humility and courage. Joseph had dreams of leadership, but before he ever sat on a throne, he was thrown into a pit, sold as a slave, wrongly imprisoned, and forgotten. And yet, through every trial, he remained faithful. God used the testing period not just to prepare the palace, but to prepare Joseph for the palace. You may feel like you're in a wilderness right now, surrounded by obstacles, closed doors, and silence from heaven. But don't mistake God's silence for His absence. He is present in the preparation. He is near in the testing. The reason things feel so heavy, the reason it seems like everything is being shaken, is because He is building a stronger foundation in you. He is removing what can't last, what won't serve you in the next season, and what would break under the weight of what's coming. Preparation is not always glamorous. It doesn't come with applause or attention. Often it feels like hiddenness, like you're working, trusting, praying with no visible results. But hidden seasons are holy seasons. That's where God does His most intimate work. Roots grow underground before fruit shows above. You must be rooted in faith, truth, and humility before you can flourish in purpose and influence. If you rush the process, you risk arriving unready. But if you submit to the preparation, your victory will not only come, it will last. Every test you face is an opportunity to grow. It may come in the form of disappointment, betrayal, delays, or challenges you didn't see coming. But instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Try asking, what is God developing in me through this? That shift in perspective will help you move from bitterness to growth, from frustration to faith. The victory will mean more when you realize how it molded you into someone stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. God's desire is not just to give you what you want, but to make you into someone who can carry what you're asking for without it crushing you. Sometimes He says, wait, not because you're being denied, but because you're being equipped. You're being trained in patience, trust, and spiritual resilience. And when the victory finally arrives, you'll not only be grateful for the breakthrough, you'll thank Him for the process that prepared you for it. So take heart. If you're in a season of struggle, know that it's not in vain. Your victory is not being withheld, it's being prepared. And so are you. Hold on, stay faithful, and allow the testing to refine you. Because on the other side of this season, you won't just walk into victory. You'll walk into it ready, mature, and stronger than ever before. Faith means trusting God's timing, not just your circumstances. That's one of the hardest lessons we learn in our walk with God, especially in a world that tells us everything should happen quickly, easily, and on our own terms. But God operates on a different timeline. His view is eternal, and his plans are woven into a much bigger picture than we can see. So when life feels like it's not moving, when your prayers seem unanswered, when doors remain shut, it's not always a denial. It may just be a divine delay. Waiting seasons can be some of the most difficult and confusing times in life. You do all the right things. You stay faithful. You serve, pray, work, and believe. Yet nothing seems to change. It's in those moments when doubt tries to creep in, when impatience begins to grow, when the enemy whispers lies telling you that God has forgotten you. But those are also the moments where true faith is formed, not in what we feel, but in who we trust. You see, God is not slow. He's not indifferent. He's not absent. He is intentional. His delays are never random. Every second of waiting is filled with purpose, even if it's invisible to you. The timing of God is not based on human logic or schedules. It's based on his knowledge of the future, his understanding of your readiness, and his desire to give you the very best, not just the quickest. What seems like a detour or a delay in your eyes might actually be divine protection. What feels like silence might be God setting up the right moment, the right people, the right opportunity that aligns perfectly with his plan for your life. Think of it like a seed. When you plant it, you don't see anything for a while. There's no evidence that anything's happening. But under the soil, life is beginning, roots are forming, foundations are being laid. In the same way, your waiting season is not empty. God is working beneath the surface, arranging things you cannot see yet. And when the time is right, just like that seed breaks through the soil, your breakthrough will come forth not a moment too early, not a second too late. It's natural to want results now. We ask God for healing, for provision, for open doors, and we want them instantly. But sometimes God withholds what we're asking for because he wants to give us more than we're expecting. His timing is often the difference between just getting what we want and receiving what will truly bless and sustain us. Sometimes what feels like a closed door is actually God saying, "Not this one, not yet. I have something better." Think of Abraham and Sarah. God promised them a child, but the fulfillment took decades. They wrestled with doubt, tried to take matters into their own hands, and faced disappointment. But when the promise finally came, it was more than just a child. It was a demonstration of God's faithfulness. It was a testimony that even when the situation looked impossible, God was still in control. If they had received the promise on their timeline, it wouldn't have had the same impact or shown the same glory. Trusting God's timing doesn't mean you're passive. It means you're active in faith, moving forward with expectation, doing what you can with what you have, but surrendering the outcome and the schedule to him. It means you don't stop praying just because things seem slow. You don't stop preparing just because the door hasn't opened. You keep believing, keep working, and keep praising even in the in-between because you know that God is never late. The truth is, God is never in a hurry, but he's never behind either. His clock runs on purpose, not pressure. When you trust his timing, you're saying, "God, I believe you know what's best for me. I believe you love me enough to say no or not yet. I believe your plan is worth waiting for." That kind of faith pleases God. It honors him, and it positions you to receive the fullness of what he has in store. So if you're waiting today, waiting for a breakthrough, an answer, a healing, a promise, don't lose heart. Don't let the silence fool you. Something is happening. Your obedience, your prayers, your tears, your faith, they are not going unnoticed. God is building something beautiful, and when it's time, it will be worth every second you waited. Not just because you finally got what you hoped for, but because along the way you became someone stronger, deeper, and more in love with the one who always shows up right on time. Say the future to be the ruler of today. God chooses the unlikely to fulfill his purposes. This truth has been proven over and over again throughout history and scripture, and it remains just as true today. Too often, people feel unworthy, unqualified, or incapable of the calling on their lives because they focus on their weaknesses, their past mistakes, or their perceived limitations. But God looks beyond all of that. He looks at the heart, the willingness to trust him, and the obedience to follow, no matter how small or ordinary someone might feel. It's easy to think that God only uses the most talented, the smartest, the most experienced, or those with the most resources. The world values qualifications, titles, and credentials, but God's ways are higher than our ways, and his standards are different. He takes what the world discards, the overlooked, the underestimated, the broken, and transforms them into vessels for his glory. He is in the business of turning weaknesses into strengths, failures into testimonies, and ordinary people into heroes of faith. Consider Moses. When God called him to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, Moses was hesitant. He argued that he was not eloquent and was slow of speech. He doubted his own abilities and felt inadequate. Yet God chose him. God used Moses' humility and reliance on him to perform miracles, confront pharaohs, and lead an entire nation to freedom. Moses didn't need to be perfect. He needed to trust God and be willing to obey. Then there's David, a young shepherd boy who was overlooked by his own family. The Israelites expected their next king to be someone older, stronger, more experienced. But God chose David despite being the youngest, smallest, and least likely candidate. David was a man after God's own heart. God used his courage, faith, and anointing to defeat giants and establish a lasting kingdom. David's story teaches us that God values the heart far more than external qualification. Esther is another powerful example. She was an orphan Jewish girl living in exile who became queen by God's providence. When her people faced destruction, Esther risked her life to intervene. She was not born into power or privilege, yet God placed her in the perfect position at the perfect time to save her people. Her story reminds us that God can elevate the unlikely to places of influence for his divine purposes. Joseph's story is no less remarkable. Sold into slavery by his own brothers, falsely accused and imprisoned, Joseph's circumstances seemed hopeless. But through every trial, he maintained his faith and integrity. God elevated Joseph from prison to palace, making him second in command in Egypt. Joseph's journey shows that no situation is too dark for God to redeem and use for his greater plan. These examples are not just ancient stories, they are divine reminders for each of us today. No matter your background, your education, your past failures, or your current situation, God can and will use you if you trust him. He is not limited by what you don't have. He is not hindered by your imperfections. Instead, he delights in working through people who depend on him, who humble themselves, and who allow him to be their strength. You may feel like you're too ordinary, too flawed, or too inexperienced. You may compare yourself to others and feel like you fall short, but God's choice is not based on human standards. He looks at your heart and your willingness to say yes. He sees your potential even when you don't. He can take your small offering and multiply it beyond what you could imagine. When you trust God in your weakness, you create space for his power to work. The Apostle Paul said, "When I am weak, then I am strong." That paradox is true because God's strength is made perfect in our weakness. The less we rely on our own abilities and more on God's grace, the greater his glory shines through our lives. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to wait until you feel ready or worthy. God calls us as we are, and he equips us along the way. Sometimes the journey includes growing through challenges, learning new things, or stepping out in faith despite fear. The important part is that you trust him enough to begin and keep going. God's purposes are greater than any obstacle or limitation. He specializes in turning the impossible into the possible. When He chooses you, it's not because of who you are alone, but because of who He is working through you. His power, His wisdom, and His love empower you to do extraordinary things beyond your own strength. So if you feel unlikely, unqualified, or too ordinary, take heart. God's track record shows that He delights in using people just like you to accomplish His divine purposes. Your past doesn't disqualify you. Your insecurities don't limit you. What matters is your willingness to trust God, follow His leading, and say yes to the calling He has placed on your life. When you do that, you become part of a story much bigger than yourself. A story of hope, redemption, and victory that only God can write through the unlikely. Speak your victory into existence. This idea may sound simple, but it carries profound power that can change the course of your life. Words are not just sounds or empty expressions. They carry creative force. The Bible tells us that God spoke the world into existence. His words brought light, life, and order out of chaos. If the creator of the universe uses words to create, then our words, made in His image, also have power to shape reality, influence our mindset, and activate divine promises in our lives. When you declare victory over your circumstances, you are aligning your heart and mind with God's truth rather than the lies or difficulties you see around you. It's easy to fall into the trap of negative speech, complaining about what isn't working, focusing on problems, or speaking doubts aloud. But those words plant seeds of fear, frustration, and defeat. On the other hand, speaking faithful declarations produces a different effect. It plants seeds of hope, expectation, and confidence. When you consistently speak victory, you begin to believe victory, and belief is a powerful catalyst for breakthrough. Your words shape your thoughts, and your thoughts shape your actions. If you continually say, I can't, this is impossible, or nothing ever works out for me, you will live out those declarations. But if you say, I am victorious, God is working on my behalf, or my breakthrough is coming, you begin to rewire your brain and spirit for success. This shift is vital because faith is not merely wishful thinking. It's the confident assurance of things hoped for. Speaking victory fuels that assurance and helps you hold on to hope even when things seem bleak. Furthermore, speaking victory is an act of faith and obedience. It declares that you trust God's promises more than your present circumstances. It is a spiritual declaration that says, I believe God is bigger than this problem. I believe He is faithful to fulfill His word. I believe my victory is on its way. This kind of declaration moves faith from your heart into action. It invites God's power to manifest and sets in motion the alignment of heaven and earth. Many times, God's promises in Scripture are activated through spoken faith. When Jesus healed the sick or cast out demons, He often spoke words that released healing and freedom. When the early church prayed and declared God's promises, miracles followed. Your spoken word works similarly. It is not magic or a chant. It is a spiritual principle grounded in relationship with God and trust in His word. Seeking your victory also has a profound impact on your mindset. Words influence how you view yourself and your situation. When you speak defeat, you reinforce a victim mentality and keep yourself trapped in fear. But when you speak victory, you cultivate a warrior mindset, one that says, I am more than a conqueror through Christ who strengthens me. This mindset fuels perseverance and resilience. It helps you keep moving forward, even when the path is tough or the results are delayed. It's important to be intentional and consistent in your declarations. Don't just speak victory once and then fall back into negative speech. Make it a daily practice to speak positive, faithful words over yourself, your family, your work, and your future. Use Scripture as a foundation. Declare promises like, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, or the Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusts in Him. When you fill your mouth with God's promises, you renew your mind and build a fortress of faith. Another key aspect is speaking your victory in the present tense, not the future tense. Instead of saying, I will be victorious, say, I am victorious. This small change affirms that your victory is not a distant hope, but a current reality anchored in God's power. It helps you live as though the victory is already unfolding, which can open doors and opportunities that might have been missed if you waited passively. Remember, your words don't only affect you, they affect those around you as well. Speaking victory encourages others, strengthens your community, and creates an atmosphere of faith. When you boldly declare God's goodness and your triumph, you become a beacon of hope in a world often filled with doubt and despair. Of course, speaking victory does not mean ignoring challenges or pretending everything is perfect. It means choosing to focus on what God says rather than what your eyes see. It means acknowledging difficulties while holding on to the promise that God is working everything for your good. It means refusing to be defined by setbacks and instead declaring the outcome you know God has promised. In summary, your words have creative power. Speaking your victory is a spiritual discipline that activates God's promises, renews your mind, and shifts your circumstances. It's an expression of faith that declares your trust in God's ability to bring breakthrough. By consistently speaking positive, faith-filled declarations, you position yourself to experience the fullness of God's blessing and